Welcome to the Truth Wins podcast. This is episode 77, titled Can We Trust Fauci? Talking about Lord Fauci, Anthony Fauci, however you want to refer to him. But we're going to ask some questions on can we really trust him as the expert to guide us through COVID and whatever is coming down the pike. So we're going to do that in a little bit. But first, I want to introduce my good friend Stu. Say hey, Stu.
Hey, Stu.
My name is Todd. I'll be your host as always, and we're going to jump into that. But first, your favorite part of each episode, Stu, titled Time to Stump Stu. All right, so this one comes from episode 71, When Absurdities Become Atrocities. And Mick said, are you really invoking Voltaire, Stu? He probably said Stu, at least in his mind, because I don't know if I invoked Voltaire. So are you really invoking Voltaire, Stu? Massive irony here. He made that comment regarding the absurdities of religion.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you asked that question, Mick, because I actually do know Voltaire. I've actually read his works, and his real name is François-Marie Arouet, and that quote came from an essay he wrote called Sur les miracles, on miracles. And so the massive irony is that Voltaire said that Christianity was a dying philosophy and that within 100 years of his death, the Bible would just be a museum piece. And then 50 years after he died, his house was purchased by the French Geneva Bible Society, and they used it to produce Bibles. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of ironic that those who predicted the death of Christianity and Voltaire actually were found out to be incorrect.
Mm-hmm. But just because somebody is either not promoting a Christian worldview or even opposed to it doesn't mean that there can't be some truth
right in what they
in
say.
Something they say.
Right.
It's like Einstein, is his theory of relativity still true? Irregardless of his worldview?
Right.
Probably,
15 right? places they found his special theory of relativity works too.
Boom. All right, second one. We're going to do two. Alito, Supreme Justice?
Supreme Court Justice, yeah.
Is basing 21st century laws on a guy who used to burn innocent women to death. And Republicans are screaming for mass murder without trials based on Trump's crazy, unhinged lies about the election he lost. This is from Paul. I'm not exactly sure where he's going on that. You
right.
Take it.
I'm not sure on part of it, but here's the part that I'm kind of confused about. It says, and Republicans are screaming for mass murder. The only mass murder I know of is the 66 million unborn children that have been slaughtered because of the Roe versus Wade decision, which actually would have changed our whole economy. We'd actually probably be doing fairly well, even with the current practices of the government.
Do you think he's talking about January 6th, though?
I don't know what he's talking about there.
Trump's
mass
crazy,
murder.
Unhinged lies about the election. So I'm wondering if we're screaming for mass murder. But who's screaming? Which Republican's saying let's murder people because Trump lost?
Yeah, I'd question who's the real mass murderer.
But what Alito decision is based?
The one that he's writing that got leaked out supposedly
on
about Roe versus Wade.
Okay.
Yeah.
On a guy who used to burn innocent women.
I don't know what he's going for there.
Okay. I wonder if it's like the witch trials, thinking
That's
that
probably what he's trying to do.
And to me, it just speaks again this different idea that all church history is about control, hypocrisy, the church being all in power and the common people, this oppression and legalism, all that kind of stuff. Which, did that happen?
For
sure.
Once again, the church has flaws, but the founder of the church is the key. Mm-hmm. Jesus didn't have any flaws. That's the beauty. And he still isn't in that tomb.
Yep. All right. Well, that's our time to stump Stu. All right. So we're going to talk about Anthony Fauci today. And the first time most people saw Fauci was in March 2020. But what's his story before then? Is he really America's authority on diseases, just trying to help us navigate through the unknown? Is really COVID-19 and all this stuff we've been through the last few years, is it really unknown? Or was this something that had been going on for a while by the time we got to March of 2020? Well, I'm going to be basing a lot of what we'll talk about today on a book called The Faucian Bargain by Steve Deese and Todd Erzin. Again, The Faucian Bargain, which is a play on which book you told me? Because I didn't know this.
It's basically a play on a book written by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe on Faust, who was a human who made a bargain with the devil. He sold his soul for power over nature. So, it's a play on that.
Yeah, so the Faucian Bargain is...
It's like making a deal with the devil.
Okay. So let's back up before Fauci was even around, and we go back to the beginning of our country. We just said this in our last episode too, that Franklin, when they were coming after ratifying the Constitution, somebody says, "Hey, what kind of government is this?" And he says, "It's a republic if you can keep it." And so the founders knew that we had to put in place the Constitution. We had to have the opportunity for amendments to be put in place to protect the people from those in power.
Right.
It's not vice versa. It's we, the people, have to be protected from those in power, because history has proven that you give one or a handful of people power and it never goes well. And I will say, I don't say never very often, but other than Jesus, when he's the King of Kings and he rules the whole earth, and it's going to be, he'll be the Prince of Peace, that's the one and only time when it's actually going to work forever. But because we're all fallen men and women, too much power is a bad thing. So the founding fathers put this in place. In fact, a year later, after ratifying the Constitution, the 10th Amendment says that the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it by the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. So the power should rest in the people and in the states, not in the federal government. The federal government had a very limited role at the beginning of our country and through much of its start. But then, fast forward a couple hundred years, and now we have this huge government that has crazy control over the lives of Americans. But that wasn't how they established it. And so the founding fathers had two things in common. They feared God, and they also feared too much power in the hands of one or a few men.
And I would say they also had another key Christian understanding, since all of them knew the Bible, that people are sinners. People are not basically good. Mm-hmm. And so that's why we need a system of checks and balances. Otherwise, you give too much power to a sinner, he's going to use it for some wicked gains.
Yeah.
Hence Hunter Biden and the laptops.
And, a popular book of wisdom in their time was something called Cato's Letters. Now, I was not familiar with this, but you, being a student that you are familiar with it. What is Cato's Letters?
Cato was a Roman, I think he actually was a senator too. He was a writer, and he was also a philosopher, and he said one of the things that he said was, the love of power is natural. It is insatiable. It is wedded, not cloyed by possession. The more you, in other words, it's not satiated by, when you possess it, you're never filled up by it. You need more and more. Yep. It's just encouraged to grow stronger. Mm-hmm. So power renders man wanton, insolent of others, and fond of themselves. So in other words, the more power you get, you care less about others, and the more fond you become of yourself. Yeah. Because you think, I need more power because I'm doing so well with the power that I have.
Yeah, I think reminds me of the person who asked Rockefeller how much money is enough, and he said, always a little bit more than what you have. And it's the same thing with power, and they go hand in hand. You think, once I have this, then I'll be satisfied. But apart from Christ, we're never satisfied. And so that desire to have power, to control, to have influence, to get your name in history, whatever drives these people to control the masses has been going on throughout human history. It's not a new thing. And so the founding fathers knew that. In fact, that's why they wrote the Constitution the way they did. That's why they have amendments. That's why the power should reside in the states, not in the federal government. But also authors know that too. And there's been plenty written in fiction and nonfiction about this when power has gone bad and what it does to people.
Yeah, I mean, if you think of George Orwell's Animal Farm, which is a great book, I'd advise all of you to read it, because it was not even loosely veiled reference to Stalin in Russia, and it talks about how the animals decide to take over the farm, they get rid of the humans, they drive the humans away, and basically like the communist revolution. And then as the animals are setting up their system of government, each of the animals is thinking, oh, look, we're all free. Now we get to decide what we do. And pretty soon, though, some of the animals start to figure out that they can be more in charge than some of the other animals. Mm-hmm. And pretty soon,
pigs.
Those rascally pigs and Napoleon, the pig takes over, and he starts living in the house and wearing human clothes and doing human things. And it says, all animals are equal. Some are just more equal than others.
Yeah.
That's a famous line.
That is a good line. Yeah, Orwell did that. He did 1984.
Yeah.
You have Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, which...
My precious.
Yeah, you do a good... I never got into too much.
Gollum and Schmeagol.
Schmeagol?
Yeah, who became Gollum. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And is it the ring, whoever had the ring, that got sucked into that desire?
All the power. One ring to rule them all.
Yeah. And so a story usually grabs people better than just saying, hey, power's bad.